Around 3 months ago, I went to my coming-of-age ceremony with a picture of my friend, who passed away from a heart attack in junior high. We were best friends who hung out pretty much every single day. At the time, I had no idea that we'd be attending our coming-of-age ceremony like this. After the mayor's speech and everything else was finished, almost all of our old classmates got together for a photo. However, when I got my hands on the developed photo a few days later, I saw that the portrait of my friend was now smiling. His face should have been expressionless. I wasn't really that scared though. He must have been happy to see everyone again, I thought. But I was wrong. Not long after we took that photo, the girl who was standing next to me died. My friend had a crush on her back in the day, so I guess he was actually happy because he knew he'd be seeing her soon. Hey guys, I'm your host Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. The latest volume of Kowabana, volume 16, is now available. If you want even more creepy tales of ghosts, haunted buildings, curses, mysterious rituals, and much more, make sure to check it out right now. And if you're looking for more to listen to, you can also find the audiobook for the first volume of Toshiden, either on our Patreon, Fourth Wall store, or various audiobook outlets, including Spotify and Audible. So don't miss out on that either if you're still looking for more. This week, we're looking at some terrifying tales of encounters with the other side. Whether they're complete strangers or close relatives. When it comes to spirits, there's no telling what they might want. But the answer is usually nothing good. First up, a young man receives an unexpected visit from his stepmother. He hasn't seen his father's new family for quite some time. But what is it that she wants from him now, after all these years? Find out in Oni. This is gonna be lengthy, but I want to get it out there, so let me write it down. When I was in the 6th grade, my parents got divorced. I then lived with my father, grandparents, and my stepmother until high school. By that point, I also had a half-sibling who was 15 years younger than me. During my 2nd year of high school, I hated my father so much that I moved out to live with my mother. Whenever he wasn't around, I'd head back to say hello to my grandparents, and it was then that I learnt I now had another half-sibling who was 18 years younger than me. In time, my grandfather developed dementia and passed away, and before long, my grandmother developed it as well. I didn't see my dad for nearly 10 years after that. Then, a few years ago, my stepmother suddenly showed up to the apartment where I lived alone. Honestly, I was shocked. We lived in the same city, so I figured she could easily find me if she just looked, but I wondered why she was looking me up now. As she stood at the front door, I asked her what she wanted, and she said she wanted my help. At first, I thought she might want to borrow some money, but my father was a company president. If she was having money troubles, there was no reason for her to come and see me. Seeing few other options, I let her in and decided to hear her out. She started by apologizing to me, but honestly, it should have been my father, not her. The reason my parents got divorced was because my dad cheated with the woman in front of me, the woman who became my stepmother. However, I didn't hate her. I didn't really feel one way or the other for her. If anything, I was more annoyed that she was poking at old wounds. If that's all you came here for today, then could you kindly leave? I didn't want to hear anything else she might have to say. But then she broke down in tears and said She wanted me to help my brother and sister. I had no idea what she was talking about. I asked if this was about an organ transplant or something, but she said that wasn't it. Basically, it seemed that since our grandparents died, their spirits had been showing up in their house. At first, it was around once a month, so it was scary, but they didn't really do anything, so they ignored it. But then, as time passed, they started appearing more frequently, and the look on their faces started becoming more fearsome, like that of a Hanya mask. And their normal clothes were also now different, like they were wearing the garments of the dead. They asked a temple to hold a memorial service for them, but it did nothing. Then, a few months before she showed up on my doorstep, she heard my younger brother crying during the middle of the night, so she got up to check on him. But as she passed my sister's room, she heard someone groaning in pain. Panicking, she opened the door and saw something that had transformed so much that she couldn't even tell if it was human or beast, choking my sister in bed. As she rushed over to pull it off, it suddenly disappeared. She told my father about it, but as someone who can't see ghosts, he just brushed it off as silly nonsense. But after that, this spirit kept appearing nearby whenever my siblings were asleep. And there was one more thing, she said. When she looked at my younger brother's notebook one day, she saw my name was scribbled on one of the pages. This brother didn't know anything about me, and my name is rather unique, so it's incredibly unlikely he wrote it by chance. They moved into a brand new house when he was just a baby, so there wasn't anything in the house with my name on it either. When she asked him about it, he said that somebody had muttered that name. "You're not so-and-so." My name. "Where is he?" the voice apparently said. Fearing that her child was going to die, my stepmother then looked up my address and came to see me. With tears in her eyes, she asked me to visit their house, but I refused. I didn't want to see my father again. He was an arrogant man who was quick to resort to violence, yet in front of other people, he pretended to be a proud, upstanding father. I hated him so much, I honestly thought that one day I might kill him. However, my younger brother and sister were also innocent. "I'll go visit my grandparents' graves," I said, and after she gave me their location, my stepmother left. On my next day off, I went to visit my grandparents' graves. They didn't have the best relationship with my mother, and they also didn't get on so well with my father. But I was their first grandchild, so they were always kind to me. I lit some incense, put my hands together in prayer, and then shed a few tears. As I picked up the bucket and ladle I used to scoop some water, ready to leave, suddenly the incense stick snapped right in front of me. I chalked it up to the wind, but a bad feeling washed over me and I think all the blood drained from my face. When I returned to the temple and put the bucket back, the monk there asked me who I had visited. I mentioned my grandparents' graves and he asked me to come inside for a moment to have some tea. Considering what had just happened with the incense, I agreed right away. The monk asked me various questions as we drank. Because my stepmother had visited him numerous times for help, it seemed it was weighing on his mind. I told him exactly what she told me, and without confirming or denying anything, he simply said, "I see," and gave me a protective charm on my way out. I later phoned my stepmother and told her I visited my grandparents' graves, That same night, I then dreamt about my grandparents. They wore ragged white kimonos and their white hair was a mess. Both stared at me fiercely and their mouths were torn wide open. They looked just like Oni. In this dream, I was still a child, and I was hiding somewhere while my grandparents looked for me. Before long, I heard their voices coming from somewhere nearby. "Found you. No, that's not him. Die. Die." Their voices were low, and I heard the sound of a child crying as well. And then I woke up. I was covered in sweat and couldn't stop shivering. I took the next day off work, called an old classmate who was now a monk, and told him everything. He had a strong sixth sense and was even scouted to be a monk on Mount Koya. He listened to my story in silence, and when I was done, he spoke bit by bit. According to him, my grandparents loved me a lot, but because they could no longer see me, they died with lingering regret in their hearts. They then returned as spirits, and as more and more time passed, that regret turned into resentment, driving them mad. They probably thought that if they killed my half-brother and sister, then I, the true heir, would return. But because they were no longer capable of rational thought, they had basically turned into Oni, whose only desire was to cause torment. "What should I do?" I asked. "You'll be fine. Ever since you moved back with your mother, her ancestors have been looking out for you. But I don't know what will happen to your half-siblings." "You mean?" I said, but then I fell silent. "Look, you know how the saying goes, right? Let sleeping dogs lie." I wasn't able to answer, and he said that it might not do anything other than offer me a little peace of mind, but still, he would recite a prayer for me. I ended up moving for work after that, and while nothing has happened to me since, my stepmother has also never contacted me again either. In this next story, a man visits his friend who has just moved next to a large river in Chiba Prefecture. Considering that he has always wanted to live near a large river himself, he stares out the window longingly at the beautiful view. But out there, he notices a woman in the distance. Who is she, and why does she always seem to be standing by the river? Find out in Woman on the Opposing Shore. This happened last summer when I went to visit my friend Y, who moved to Choshi City in Chiba Prefecture. His apartment was in a rather quiet location near the Tone River. From his window, you could see the spacious area near the river mouth, and for someone like me, who always wanted to live near a large river, the sight of it made me extremely jealous. By that evening, we'd run out of things to talk about, so I just stared out his window at the view outside. Oh yeah, come to think of it, the other side of that river is Ibaraki Prefecture, right? I thought to myself. And then I realized somebody was standing on the opposing shore. I couldn't see them very well, but I could just make out that it was a woman. I must have stared out that window for around an hour, and the entire time that woman just stood there on the exact same spot. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but I had some personal business to take care of in Tokyo, so I planned to spend the next 4 to 5 days at Y's apartment. The next morning, I woke up a little late, opened the window to let some air in, and then stared at the view outside for a while. Then I realized that woman was standing on the opposing shore again. She was also there the next day, and the day after that. Seemed she really liked looking at the river. I understood exactly how she felt, and I started to grow curious about her. Who on earth was this woman? I wanted to know more about her, and started to wonder if there was perhaps some way to get closer to her. However, there was no bridge or anything nearby that would allow me to walk over there. The only bridge nearby was Choshi Bridge, and that was exclusively for cars. I didn't exactly feel like going out of my way to see her, so I had little choice but to give up on the idea. When Y got home from work that night, I told him about the woman as we had a few beers. Huh? I can't say I've ever seen her before. So, is she cute? Suddenly, he seemed interested. I don't know. She's too far away, so it's hard to tell. She might still be out there right now, so why don't you take a look? I said. We both moved to the window and looked outside. As I suspected, that woman was still standing there on the opposing shore. Ah, I see. She really is too far away to see properly, huh? Y then grabbed some binoculars from his closet. He loved fishing, so he apparently always used these to check what was happening in the river outside. Here, why don't you have a look, he said, forcing the binoculars into my hands. I put them to my eyes and looked across the river. Seemed she was still too far away to see clearly, but now I could tell that she was a young woman wearing a brown dress. I handed the binoculars to Y, and he looked as well. Normally he'd make some sort of snappy remark, but this time he strangely remained silent. He was acting rather odd. Worried, I asked if he was okay, but then he started muttering something. Hey, that woman. She's walking this way, he said. At first, I didn't understand what exactly it was that he was saying. I stood next to him and then looked over to the opposing shore. That woman was indeed walking. She was walking on top of the water. I realized immediately that this woman was not of this world. Shit! She's looking this way! Is she walking towards us? Gimme those! I snatched the binoculars from Y and looked through them. The woman was now roughly halfway across the river. She was white and puffy, like that of a swollen, drowned body. We panicked and immediately ran from the room. Instinctively, it felt like that woman was coming to kill us. We were unable to return to the apartment again that night, so we spent the night in a business hotel instead. After that, Y also left and moved to another apartment in a different city. I still wonder if maybe it was my curiosity that ended up summoning that woman standing on the opposing shore. A young man joins the archery club at school, even though he's not exactly very good at it. But one day, he encounters something strange down the archery range. Something that's about to change his luck forever. Find out why in Archery. This happened when I was in the first grade of high school. At the time, my teacher recommended I join a school club, and although I didn't exactly want to, I ended up joining the archery club. But still, even though I didn't want to be there, the strength training really did help me build some muscle, and the first time I fired an arrow honestly felt amazing. 2 weeks passed after I shot my first arrow. In archery, there are various distances you can shoot from, and I practiced from 50 meters. On this particular day, things just weren't going my way. As I secured my third arrow in the bow, I was about to lift it and aim, when I realized that something didn't feel right. The archery range at our school had a rather large thicket that sort of functioned as a fence and split the area in two by running down the middle. And at that precise moment, it looked like someone was hiding in there. Now, in archery, it's a fairly standard rule that if somebody is standing in front of you, you don't draw your bow. As such, I thought everyone would lower their bows, but not a single person did. I figured that I was just overthinking things and lifted my bow as well. Bows come with something called a sight attached. You can adjust your aim by using it. Think of it as something like a rifle scope. As I drew the bow and looked through the sight to aim, I saw somebody in front of me through it. I knew I wasn't imagining things. Surprised, I lowered my bow and then turned to my classmate next to me. "Hey, there's somebody out there. You can't shoot now, it's dangerous." "Huh? Are you okay? If you've got time to say such stupid things, how about you use that time to actually practice instead?" Everybody always treated me as the dumb kid at school, so he ignored me. But there was a person right in front of us. Still, no arrows hit them. Well, whatever it was, everyone else was still practicing, so I should be okay as well, right? That was what I told myself as I drew my bow again. But when I looked at the target, suddenly I wanted to cry. This person, or whatever it was moving at an incredible speed towards me, and their joints were moving and bending in a really strange way, kind of like a bugged character in a video game I'd seen before. But nobody else noticed it. Was I the only person who could see them? Before I even finished the thought, the figure stood right in front of me. She was an old lady. Her bloodshot eyes looked right at me. But she just stared. She didn't say a word, and she didn't do anything to hurt me either. Everybody else had finished shooting their arrows, so they were all waiting for me. I knew there was no way I could shoot now, so I gave up. "Things just aren't going my way, so I'm done for today," I said with a small laugh, putting down my bow and joining them to pick up the arrows. As I ran towards the targets, that old woman followed me with the same strange movements. Of course, she stuck right by my side, still looking at me with those bloodshot eyes. I panicked. What the hell did this old lady want with me? Then I tripped and fell. Some of my classmates and senior members ran over to me, worried. But as I looked around, the old woman was now nowhere to be seen. As I sat there on the ground, confused, my classmate brought over my arrows. And after that, everything returned to normal. Well, maybe not normal, as my archery scores dramatically improved right after that. To this day, I still have no idea who that old woman was, but I can't help but feel that she brought me some good luck. In this next story, a young boy often plays in the forest near his house with a friend. There's an old house out there with a creepy well, and one day they find another boy playing nearby. But who is this boy, and what does he really want? Find out in The Well. Long ago, when I was just a kid, there was this old, dilapidated house in the woods that had a well. Kenta, alias, and I used to go there almost every day to play. I was a pretty shy kid, but Kenta was always energetic and curious about everything. One day, we visited that house like we always did to play, But this time around, a kid around the same age as us, we were 8 at the time, emerged from somewhere out the back. "Let's play," he said without even telling us his name. "Sure," we replied happily. And so we played together for a while before I suddenly noticed something. This kid's eyes were weird. The entire time we were together, he didn't blink once. I started to grow afraid and wanted to go home. But of course, I was shy, so I had to wait until Kenta decided to leave so I could go with him. But sadly, Kenta and this kid really hit it off. They were already playing like they were best friends. Before long, the sun was already starting to set. Back then, we used to play until dinner time. Well, it's about time to head back, I thought. But then that kid said something. "Before we go, do you want to check out the well?" Neither Kenta nor I had ever seen the inside of the well. It was pretty old, but there was some rope attached to the top that still looked perfectly usable. I was too scared to go in, but Kenta and this other kid had been getting along great, so he said, "Sure. Who wants to go first?" I absolutely did not want to go in, so I didn't say a word. After a short silence, Kenta spoke again. "All right, I'll go. You guys hold the rope and pull me out when it's time to leave." And with that, Kenta started descending into the well, leaving me and this other kid alone at the top. We couldn't see the bottom, so it was a pretty deep well, and when we dropped a rock in it, we couldn't hear it hit the bottom either. At first, Kenta kept chatting as he went down, but gradually he fell quiet. After a few minutes, the rope went slack. Thinking Kenta must have hit the bottom, I called out, "Hey! How is it? Is there anything there?" I screamed towards the bottom of the well, but there was no response. I tried calling out to him again and again, but each time I was met with silence. Panicking, I pulled the rope up. I didn't even realize that the rope was slack, and so Kenta couldn't be on it. I pulled it all the way up, and, of course, Kenta wasn't at the bottom. I looked around, unsure of what to do, and realized it was now dark. I figured it would be best for us to get an adult for help, so I turned around to look for that kid. But he was also gone. No idea what was going on, I started running. I was beyond terrified, and I ran all the way home. "Mom, Kenta disappeared. What should we do?" I cried when I got back. "Who's Kenta?" she said. "Aren't you always playing by yourself?" I was even more confused than before. "Look, I don't know, but either way, we need to go back to the well by that house in the forest," I said. "What well in the forest? There's no house or well out there," my mother then replied. I don't really remember what happened after that. According to my parents, I broke out in a high fever and passed out. The next day, my parents visited an old guy who lived nearby and asked him if anything had ever happened out there in the past. According to him, there did indeed used to be a kid by the name of Kenta. There was also an old house and well, but this was over 50 years ago. Kenta apparently fell into the well and died. The old guy also apparently saw Kenta playing with another kid one day. Just like the kid I saw, this one apparently didn't blink. Not even once. And just like that, this kid suddenly vanished without a trace as well. There were stories that the house and well also disappeared without a trace, just like that strange boy. I don't know why Kenta fell down the well. but in the end, his body was never found. Even now, I still have no idea who that kid was, or what on earth was up with the old house and well. But there's one thing I do know. Kenta was trying to lure me into that well. He was trying to get me to go down there to find him. I think the inside of that well is different to our world. Long ago, I heard that wells are a sort of border between our world and the next. Was Kenta and that other kid bored on the other side and trying to get me to join them there? When the young man in this next story arrives home late one night, he finds something incredibly odd inside. What on earth is it, and what could it possibly want? Find out in The Thing Hanging. This story happened to me a while ago. At the time, I lived in an old 2-story wooden apartment building, but it had just been renovated, so the interior was really nice. They had replaced the tatami mats with wooden flooring as well, so everything looked fancy and new. This was a small apartment with a single bedroom, kitchen, bathroom and toilet. The kitchen was around 4 tatami mats large, and the living room around 6, I think. The monthly rent was 40,000 yen. Considering this was Tokyo, it was massively cheap, and I honestly really liked it. One day, I was out late having drinks for work, and by the time I got back to my apartment, I think it was around 1 a.m. I took the last train of the night to get home, and as I climbed the stairs of my building and reached my front door, I realized that something felt off. Looking back on it now, I regret ignoring the warning signs that I shouldn't go inside. Upon entering the front door of this particular apartment, the kitchen was immediately to the left, and the toilet and bathroom to the right, with a door leading to the bath itself. Straight ahead was a door that separated the kitchen from the living room. I generally left that door open, unless I was cooking or had some particular reason to keep it closed. Now, as I stood in front of the entrance, I could sense something swaying on the other side of that frosted glass door by the kitchen. However, I just assumed it was headlights from a passing car outside or something like that. So I took my keys out of my suit pocket without thinking much more of it and opened the door. Then I noticed something swaying inside the apartment. It was too dark to see very well, but it was something long hanging from the ceiling in the living room, right next to the open sliding door. Slowly, it swayed back and forth. Of course, I didn't remember putting up anything like that, so I stood there, frozen on the spot. And after a few moments, my eyes adjusted to the darkness. Squinting to get a better look and aided by the moonlight outside, I could make out what appeared to be a human head. I didn't know how it was possible, but it appeared that a person was hanging upside down from the ceiling, and the long hair growing from the nape of their white neck swung back and forth like a pendulum as their entire body moved. I couldn't see their face, but that was because they were facing away from me. A few moments later, I realized the swinging was now getting more violent. At first it was gentle, but now it was picking up steam and getting more and more violent. This entire time, I was too scared to move even a single muscle. I feared that, if I did, the sound might make that thing turn around, and I was just honestly too terrified to move. As I stood there, frozen, the thing in front of me continued to swing more and more violently. Its head swayed right to left, over and over, and its long hair violently shook with it. I could hear the sound of the hair moving, and the wooden ceiling also began to creak. The head swung even more wildly, picking up such intense speed that it started hitting the ceiling. Bang! 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 The long hair was a disheveled mess. The sound of the hair rustling and the creaking in the ceiling got louder and louder, echoing in the room. "Oh my God," I thought, closing my eyes tight, and another loud bang made me jump so hard I thought my heart might stop. Turning around, my neighbor stood by the front door. "Would you mind keeping it down?" he said. I realized that the sound had stopped, and that thing was gone. Of course, after all that, I was unable to spend the night in the apartment, so I stayed in a nearby net cafe instead. When the sun rose the next morning, I nervously returned, but the apartment looked perfectly normal. However, on the ground beneath where that thing had been swinging, I found numerous strands of long hair. After that, I grabbed just my essentials and spent the next few weeks in a hotel before finally moving out. And finally this week, some young siblings like to fight over who gets to pull the string to turn the lights off each night. But on this particular night, that fight may turn into something they long regret. What's lurking in the darkness with them? Find out in The Thing Swaying by the Window. This is something that scared the hell out of me when I was in the 5th grade. It's probably not that scary in words, but it was honestly really tough for me. So at the time, our family of 5 was living in a cheap apartment. Looking back on it now, I guess we were kinda poor. We all slept crammed together in a 6 tatami mat room, and at bedtime, my older sister, younger brother, and I would all dive under the blankets and pretend to be moles and such. Our bedroom at the time had one of those lights where you had to pull the string to turn it on and off. Us kids always screamed about wanting to pull it, so our parents tied a longer piece of string to it so we could reach it. Every night before bed, there was a fierce battle to see who would get to turn the lights off. We'd all scramble over each other and keep pulling the string, and I remember our father always getting angry at us. But it was like, whoever pulled the string got to put an end to the day, and it gave us a sense of superiority over the others, you know? Anyway, one day, my older sister visited Nikko for a school trip. Our uncle, my father's younger brother, came over to hang out for a while, and I think they were playing mahjong in the living room next to the bedroom. After playing for most of the night, around 8:30 I found myself getting pretty tired, so my brother and I decided to go to bed. I didn't want to leave our uncle, but I could no longer fight the sleepiness, so I pulled our beds out and got my bag ready for school the next day. "Hey, I want to pull the string," my younger brother said. But I also wanted to be the one to put an end to what was a really fun day. So we got into a fight. I snatched the string from him and started violently pulling it. You know those lights that have various brightness settings, like bright, warm, dark? Well, I pulled it too much, so it went bright, warm, dark, and bright again in a full circle. But there, by the window, I saw a huge bloated man hanging by the neck. I pulled the string before I even realized what I saw, but I had most definitely seen a huge man on the edge of my vision. It seemed my brother hadn't seen it though. "Hey, no fair!" my brother screamed, his head drooping. But all the power drained from my legs, and I felt sick. There was just no way, right? I didn't have any sixth sense, and I'd never even once thought about the existence of ghosts. I struggled to breathe, and I honestly couldn't move. I wasn't brave enough to turn the light back on to check, and all sorts of thoughts tumbled through my mind. If I moved, would it move too? What would I do if it touched me? And so, I just let out a scream that came from the depths of my heart. Not like, "Ah!" but the type of strange, horrifying scream you can only let out when you are well and truly terrified by something. I remember it being hard to scream because my throat went dry as soon as I saw that huge guy. I was scared that my parents and uncle might not hear me. But I surprised my brother, and I remember him looking at me with a strange look on his face, although it was too dark to see it clearly. The sliding doors behind me opened, and my drunk father and uncle stuck their heads in. I ran over before I could stop myself, flinging myself at them in tears. My father laughed while my mother was cutting something in the kitchen behind him. I sighed in relief and thought that maybe I was just seeing things because I was so tired. But there, by the front door, I saw him again. A rope hung from his neck as he walked towards me with large, jerky motions, kind of like stop motion. And the look on his face was horrifying. I went into full-blown panic mode, and pushing my father away, I ran for the bed and dove under the blankets. Why couldn't anyone else see him? Had I done something wrong? "I'm sorry. I'll do better. I'll even be nice to my brother." I trembled and prayed under the blankets. And I guess at some point I fell asleep, because that night I had a dream I still vividly remember. That huge man was dead on top of me and was starting to decompose. His body was swelling with gas or something, I guess, and he was starting to drip. He was way too heavy to move, and there were bugs crawling all around us. Next thing I knew, it was morning, and I was wrapped in blankets. Remembering what had happened the night before, my heart pounded. But when I threw the blanket off, nothing was there. I sighed in relief. Crying, I ran to my mother in the kitchen. The smell of cooking sausages honestly filled me with relief. Now I'm 23 years old, but I've had dreams similar to that pretty much every single day of my life. He no longer appears right in front of me, but honestly, it's tough. At the end of the day, it's just a dream, and I don't want anyone to think I'm weird, so I can't talk to anyone about it. It scares me a little that I'm starting to get used to it. I wonder how long that guy's gonna stick around for. A huge thank you and shout out to this week's Cummy tier members, Scarly and Emerald. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kowabana Volume 16, out right now, and check out our merchandise store at kowabana-shop.fourthwall.com. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.